Hey, what's up guys, my name is Cherno and welcome to the third episode of the Sparky engine series in which we make a beautiful game engine from scratch in C++. So today we'll be taking a look at our wonderful input, and specifically input from keyboard and mouse. And by mouse I mean buttons and position as well on the screen. So right now, or last time when we were making this engine, we left off with this rectangle. And it was nice, and well, we had that actually from episode 1, but what we did do was we loaded glue, and we verified that it works by doing cool stuff like generating vertex arrays and whatnot. So that in mind, it's time to begin input. So what I'm going to do is, under source, I'm going to create a new folder called input, and it's in my graphics folder. No, it's not good. Okay, let's get rid of graphics for now. And in there I'm going to put in a header file. I'm probably going to call this, let's see, probably input. One thing I'll be referring to, by the way, and I recommend that you guys do read if you're new to input in GLFW, is this GLFW input guide. So we'll be basing everything off this. So it's probably a good idea to read this before we actually write any code. So basically we know that we need to poll events, and that's really it. And then what happens is we set key callbacks based on the window. So what I actually might do is put all this code into the window. And as you can see, once we press a key, we have the power to activate an airship, which we will certainly be doing. But all the key callbacks will probably have to be static functions, and that's probably about it. So yeah, it looks pretty straightforward. This shouldn't be a very long episode, and I'm actually not going to make that. So you know what, input folder, you can probably die. I'll keep the input folder around perhaps because GLFW does support stuff like joystick input, so we'll probably be able to connect controllers such as Xbox 360 controllers so that we can actually use them in our games, and I'll definitely put that in there. It's probably not the highest priority thing to put in, so I'm not going to cover that today, but perhaps in the future. So anyway, back in window, according to this we need to poll events. I believe we're already doing that. Yep, GLFW poll events. That's happening, so that's taken care of. So all we need to do now is set up callbacks, and that's it. So what is a callback? Let's begin with that. Essentially, a callback is pretty much a function pointer. So what happens is we tell GLFW, here is a pointer to a function. I want you to call this function whenever you want, okay? And then GLFW will be like, was a key pressed on our keyboard? And if the answer is yes, or in fact, if any key event happens, it doesn't matter if it's a press or a release, GLFW has that function pointer, and it will call the function and be like, I'm calling it. And then of course the function is something we give it, so we make the function. So whatever code we put in there will just work. If you guys are familiar with Java, it's basically like making an interface with a method such as run or something, or invoke, right? And then of course it will invoke that method when it wants, which is in this case when a key gets pressed. So that being said, the other thing that's really important to know is that these callbacks, they cannot be normal methods in a class. They have to be either functions, or they can be static methods. Okay, you can't have an instance and be like, I want a callback for this instance. Okay, it's not something you can do, I'm pretty sure. Maybe there's a way around that, but there's no standard way to do that. So that being said, we're probably going to just going to make standard functions, I think. Yeah, so we've got a few considerations to play with. I probably will actually make static methods for it. So the first thing we'll need is a static boolean array called something like keys. So our idea is, let me just map this out for you guys real quick. And I do have a turkey on the stove, by the way, so I'm going to try and make this quick. But that being said, and of course you guys are wondering what I'm talking about having a turkey on the stove, but that's why you should have watched the live stream. Anyway, we want keys, right? So what's going to happen is this window class is going to have a boolean array, and this boolean array will be called something like keys, and it will be set to a large number that will cover most of the keys on our keyboard, let's just say. What happens is when a key gets pressed, we get something called a key code. In this case, GLFW actually has two variables. There's one called a scan code, which is not really what we want, and there's one called a key, which is what we want. So it gives us essentially a key code. So it's a numeric representation of the key. It's not simply the character converted into an integer. It's not that. It's an integer representation of a specific key on the keyboard. So let's just say we press something like the A key and it gives us 50, okay? If it gives us 50, we can be like, let's use this integer as an index in this array. So we use it as an index, and to do that, we just call keys, then the actual key code, right? Or in this case, 50, which will be the key code, right? And we set it equal to true when it gets pressed. Now, when the key gets released, we simply take the same thing here and we set it equal to false, okay? And that is it. That is the whole story, okay? So we use the key code as an index in our array. We do the exact same thing with the mouse buttons. And then, of course, with the mouse position on the window, we can simply use an XY, okay? And I believe a GLFW gives us a double for that, so we'll probably use doubles. That's it. That's the whole story. It's pretty amazing. So, that being said, we should probably start implementing this. There was one more thing I wanted to mention. Was there? I don't think so. No? Okay, let's begin. If anything, I'll go back to the drawing board, don't you worry. So we need to make these static. We need to make these static because, again, we have to use functions and not methods. And the other thing is, we might as well make them static because, let's be honest, we're only going to have one kind of keyboard registered to one window at a time. So it's not like we'll be focused in on multiple windows at once or something. So the first thing we need to do is, let's just make this. So I'll make it 1024. In fact, we might even define something such as max keys for now, and we'll set it equal to 1024, just in case we do want to change that later. And we'll similarly make one, so I'll call this, these are private, so I'll call these using our convention, of course, so M keys and M buttons. So buttons will be mouse buttons, so I'll probably call this mouse buttons. And then define max buttons will be something like 32 probably, and I'll probably align these to make them nice. Is that nice? Maybe not. Maybe I'll just do that. So we got max keys and max buttons. Okay, fantastic. So now these arrays have been created. I also want to make a static double MX. Lol, that just looks hilarious. So mouse X and mouse Y. So I'll probably just call these MX and MY. Let's go back to this real quick. The mouse movement will be handled with something. Wait, does GLFW doesn't support image loading, does it? Because that would be spectacular. Anyway, that's another episode. Mouse, give me mouse position, cursor position. So yes, so it gives you a double X position and a double Y position. So yeah, we'll have them as doubles. Okay, cool. So let's begin with key input first. I'm going to make a private static function here. So there'll be a static. Let's take a look at what it wants. This is what it wants, right? This is the function prototype that it wants. So let's take this, let's paste it in here. I'll call this, I'll just probably leave this as key callback. And I'll probably leave everything else as is because that's pretty much all we want, okay? Let's implement that for now. So back in window, I'm gonna make void. So we had window resize. Actually, you know what? Window resize wasn't part of this, was it? Oh, this is annoying. Okay, so we have to decide probably what we want to do because there's no point making a bunch of static private methods if we've got just window resize chilling here. Lol. Okay, I guess we won't then. So we'll keep this stuff here, but so we'll make the methods as just standard functions. They won't be part of this class at all. Okay. Okay. Just because we didn't for the resize apparently. So where was resize? There's was the prototype, and then I'm assuming it got called somewhere. Yes, so set window size callback. Okay, so there's our key callback. So I'll probably just change the callbacks to all be underscore. So any standard C function, C style kind of procedural function, will be in this convention, and then methods will be in the convention with the, I don't even know what it's called, camel case, or I think camel case is what it's called. Like that, okay? So so we'll quickly just update that to be true. Window resize. And then we'll declare, I could just implement it up here, but I'm not going to, okay? Because I don't want to, bro. Alright, so, again, what we need to do is we need to get the current window. It gives us a GLFW window, not a current window, so what we need to do is somehow get the current window that is being used and set its key, or set its, relevant key in the Boolean array to true, okay, if the key is pressed. So, to do that, we need to probably have some way to have a static kind of instance of the window, because we can't simply be like, lol, this dot key or something, or what is it, m keys at index. We can't do that because we have no idea what the current instance of this window is. As you can see, we're not in window anymore, we're in just global function space. Well, we're not global function space, we're in Sparky graphics, but we're not inside the window. So how do we do that? Well, what we could do is we could make a private or a public. We'll probably just make this public. We'll make a public window. Okay, we'll call it instance. This will be a pointer to a window. We'll actually have a const. If we have a const, that'll probably mean we have to initialize it. Okay, we'll just make a static window instance, just like that. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is when any window gets created, the current instance will change to be this. All right. In the future, we should probably make it so that we can change. We probably could change it to something else in the future, but for now this will work. Okay, so once we've got an instance and whatnot, we can go ahead and say window instance, right? And then we can access stuff like we probably won't be able to because that's not public. Lol. All right. So there is actually another way to do this, it seems. Okay, so all input callbacks receive a window handle. By using the window user pointer, you can access non-global structures or objects from your callbacks. Okay, so we can use something such as glfw set window user pointer or get window user pointer to be able to actually access our window class. Okay. So let's check it. Let's take a look at how we can use this. Function sets the user-defined pointer of the specified window. All right, cool. So it takes in a window. Okay, cool. So when we create, okay. So I'm sorry to be all over the place, but I do want to remind you that this series isn't. It's basically me making a game engine from scratch, all in front of you. So, of course, referring to documentation is something that we will do from time to time. So, what we do is, when we make the window, which is right over here, and we set all our callbacks, we call glfw set window user pointer. Okay, we pass in the current window, which is the glfw window, which is called m-window. Yeah. And then we pass in this as the pointer, okay? Then what we do is, over here we receive this window object, so we can call glfw get user window, get window user pointer, my goodness. And then we have to just pass in the window. That will of course return a void pointer, which we can basically get into our window. So we need to cast this. So window, well I call this win because there's all windows already taken, will be equal to window that, okay? So we can use that instead, and that is much better than having to do what I was just proposing to do. Okay, so we simply set the user pointer to this, of course, and basically all we're doing is we're giving this window object that we created, glfw's window, a memory address of this current window class so that we can then change stuff, okay? And then we can call something like win. Problem is we're not going to have access to public, to private methods. So what we could do is another little cool trick. So this is turning out to be quite the episode. I didn't think this would be this complicated, but it looks like we're making this complicated. So glfw window is a class currently, or it's a struct, actually. It's a struct that, which makes no difference, by the way. But it's a struct that is obviously a different struct to our window object. So we obviously cannot go ahead and say win dot m keys, because m keys is private and we can only access public things. There is a way around that. What we can do is we can mark glfw window as a friend. Okay, if we mark it as a friend, it means that glfw window is our friend and we are letting glfw window access our private stash of data. Okay, so to mark something as a friend, you can simply type, and this can be anywhere. You can do this here, for example. And I think because it's a struct, I'll have to type in friend struct instead of friend class or whatever. But you just go friend struct glfw window, okay? And once you do something like this, you can go back here and you can see that, lol. So we can't do that. But what we can do is, oh, where are my static callbacks? Oh, so this is where it gets even more complicated. This is going to be the worst episode in the history. These callbacks have to be marked as friends additionally to everything else. Oh, great. Great. Let's go back here for 1 second, because I think this mentions something about private members. This is going to be this is going to be the most complicated glfw input tutorial in the history, but I'm not even mad about that. Let's go back here. Non-global, okay, yeah. Yeah, that's not useful at all. Okay. All right. So, back to the drawing board. So we're going to go back here and make this a static, and we'll make this a friend, okay? So this is now a friend static void key callback. We keep the implementation here as usual. In fact, if we go up here, we can just get rid of this. And if I go down here, this should now hopefully, yes, link to this. So it's that. And now, thank you. So now we have access to all of this, okay? So that's, and don't worry about the turkey, by the way, guys. Sorry, I'm talking to the stream right now for those of you watching this video. This is going to be the worst video in the series. Let's focus. The turkey is fine, okay? Now, let's set m keys at key equal to true. Now, this, of course, is something that only happens if the window gets pressed. So how do, if the key gets pressed, okay? If it gets released, we need to set it equal to false. Now, unfortunately, this is further complicated by the fact that there are two different press methods. There's a press and there's like a repeat. A repeat happens when a key has been pressed and begins being pressed again. So it's, in other words, you know, if you hold a key down, you know, it registers one press and then it registers a bunch of presses. So the presses is the second part of this. So what we can do is when we do set our key callback, which is, this is in window, okay. There's glfw press, so action is what we want, right? So essentially, right, action can equal many things, such as glfw press, then there's also glfw repeat, yeah, and then there's release. So essentially what we want to do is we want to say, if action doesn't equal glfw release, so if this is true, then essentially our key is pressed, right? Because only if glfw release is activated is our key false. So if we grab this, we can simply put it into here, and lol, and this should work. Okay, so we also need to instantiate this array, or rather initialize this array. So as well as actually set it up properly as well here, which we'll cover in a minute. But for in I equals 0, I is less than our max keys, I plus plus, we'll set keys I equal to, and it's actually m keys, I equal to false. Fantastic. So, and we'll do the same thing for the mouse buttons. Alright, good. So everything's false by default, of course, and then it gets pressed. Finally, we should have some kind of way to check the current key if it's being pressed, right? So, I'll probably just... we could do a bunch of things with that. I think I might as well make it static. So we'll make a static bool is key pressed. Maybe I'll call it key pressed, I don't know. Int key code, right? And then I'll grab that. We'll go back here. And let's just put it over here. So we'll get rid of the static, of course, we don't need that. It's already static. We'll put it into our window namespace thing. And all we'll do is we'll return keys at, or rather m keys at keycode. So we should probably do something like check to make sure the keycode is in range. So I'll put that as a to-do, we won't bother with that for now. You know what, we might as well. If keycode, so we'll make it an unsigned int. So if keycode is greater than or equal to max keys, then we're outside of the range, so we'll just return false and we'll probably log something. So once we have a logging system, we'll log something. We'll make a logging system eventually as well, but we'll log this as being an error. Okay, cool. So back to here, we need to make sure that this is unsigned. All right. This will also be, yeah, that's pretty much it, right? We can mark it as const as well. No, we can't. Yeah, we can't because it's static, obviously. I forgot I made it static. So the reason I made it static is because all of this stuff is static, right? Sometimes I wouldn't do that, but in this case, I don't really think there's a need to have multiple windows at once. So for now, we'll continue on with this static spiel, but eventually, I don't know, everything should be fine. This should work. Okay, cool. Now that that's done, we should test this out. So back in main. Oh, one thing I forgot to mention, by the way, is these static things actually have to be implemented in the CPP file. So if we take this, for example, m keys, right, up the top here, or anywhere really, we need to basically declare this as being a thing, okay? And specifically, we need to give it an initialization. So max keys, right? There we go. And we have to do the same thing for the buttons. So mouse buttons, max buttons. Okay, cool. And then we have to do that for every static member. So this is the mx and my are also static, of course, so we have to do that as well. So the syntax for this is obviously just return type and then window and then that. We don't have to give it any value, by the way. And then the same thing for my. And there we go. Fantastic. So now that this is all set up, we shouldn't get any errors. Let's try and build this. Good. So now in here, let's type in something like stdc out window dot is key pressed glfw key a or something. Yeah. So if we run this now, 0, and then if I press A on my keyboard, lol, I'm pressing it and I'm not getting a result. Fantastic. Let's quickly put this into an if block as well. So if window key pressed, blah, blah, blah. We will set that and we'll print out something like pressed. All right. So it's not being pressed right now. Let's just double check that though. Okay, so it's not being pressed. Let's go back and investigate what's wrong. Keycode is, so let's just make sure this isn't happening. 65. Yep, that's fine. And then we forgot to set the callback. Okay, so that was silly. Let's go back here, and then there's this window size callback. Let's make sure that we set a, is it just key callback? Set key callback, okay? And window, and then key callback. All right, done. So if we run this now, and we press the letter A, hopefully you'll see the words pressed here. Okay, fantastic. So keyboard is working. Let's cover mouse. Mouse is going to be largely the same deal. All right, we've got is key pressed, is button pressed, or is mouse button pressed. Unsigned int button. Whoa. So yeah, so you can have multiple windows. That will be supported, but basically you'll have to have an instance for them. So we'll talk about that later. Yeah, we could have made multiple windows. We'll deal with that as more of an advanced feature in the window. Sorry, by the way, for those of you who are watching this not live, I was just answering a chat question in the twitch.tv chat. Okay, so we've got this. Let's quickly set a mouse button callback, right? Which will be our mouse button callback. So there's our key callback. We'll make a mouse button callback. Let's go and let's find mouse input. So that's, yep. Where are my buttons? Here we go. So many mouse events. Set, yes. So it's just that. All right, so now that we've got our fantastic mouse button callback, let's go over here and actually implement it. Okay, so let's get our window, and then we'll say when m mouse buttons at index button equals, now what actions do we have available to us? Is it the same thing, GLFW press? Is there even a GLFW repeat? Okay, I guess I'll just do the same thing. So there we go. Lol, done. Alright, so there's our mouse buttons. Let's check this out. What do we have? GLFW mouse button right, for example. So is, oh, I haven't implemented the mouse button thing. So let's copy and paste the keys. So we'll go if mouse button pressed, mouse, rather button, what we call it, max buttons, and then we'll return m mouse buttons and the button. All right, fantastic. So that looks pretty good. Let's just grab this because I need to make sure that it's in my prototype. Oh, it was. Lol, I already wrote it. Okay, so there we go. That should work. Let me just double check. Yep. So back in main, we'll use something like is mouse button pressed, GLFW mouse button 1. Let's actually probably use mouse button right or something, or left. So mouse button left, and then if I click, hopefully, as you can see, it is registering as pressed. Fantastic. So that is done. Now the last thing we have is positioning of the mouse on the screen. So we can do that using, and we'll do stuff like cursor leave events and whatnot in the future as well. But cursor position, we simply have a cursor position callback. It's exactly the same. So this is the cursor position callback. Let's grab that. Let's put it into here. Let's declare it as a friend. We'll keep everything else as is. We've got our Y position and our X position. And then all we have to really do is, let's see. We have to make a So what's the callback? Set cursor position callback. Set cursor position callback. So I should probably call this, yeah, cursor position callback. Okay. And then finally, to implement it, let's grab our cursor position callback. Let's grab this, our window. Let's go ahead and set the windows. Yeah, so the other thing I want to mention is that these no longer have to be static since we're using this. So let's set this mx equal to x position, and then let's set my equal to y position. Okay, good. So that's basically all we have to do. So now in main, now in window, if we had something along the lines of static bool mouse or get mouse position, and just I think for now we'll just take in, so we'll go, so this will return a vec2 eventually, like a 2-component vector, but since we don't have that for now, we'll simply take in double x and double y by reference, of course, and then we'll spit out, we'll just set them, and that's it. So where's our stuff? Okay, so window, that, and then we'll just set x equal to mx and y equal to my. Okay, that's really all we have to do. So now let's see this in action. We will print out, so we'll quickly make a double xy. We'll go window dot get mouse position xy, okay, and then we'll print out x y. Okay, so now we should see relative to the window, as you can see, where our mouse is on the screen. Fantastic. So now let's quickly clean this up. One thing that I should note is that making this static is totally an option. We don't actually have to make it static. What we could do instead is make it not static. So right now we have the ability to call this by simply going window get mouse position no matter where we are. Okay, we don't have to have an instance of the object. That could be nice, because if we're in some other class, we don't want to be passing around the instance. It's just an unnecessary variable for us because there is really only one window anyway. However, if people do want to use it, it could become a problem. So we might have something like window instance and then get mouse position if you really want to use it like that, and that would mean that this would be static, this would not, okay, because we don't need it to be static. So I'm going to wipe out the staticness and make it not static, I think. So I'll grab the static. By the way, quick shortcut, if you hold down Alt while selecting text, you can kind of select text downward like this. It's really useful. So if I just hit delete on that, and you can see I'm typing in like the entire thing, I'm going to make that not static. These will still be static, all right? They have to be. And we'll make all this stuff not static as well. All right, there we go. So now that everything is not static, we have to go back into window and remove all of this. Okay, but on the bright side, if we run this now, you can see it still runs and we're not static anymore. Okay, pretty cool stuff. So now that we're not static, let's go ahead and apply the correct amount of constness to everything. So is key pressed, we'll put const at the back of everything, meaning it can't actually modify anything because these are basically getters, and they shouldn't be doing that anyway. So let's put that there. And of course, that'll be functionally useful when we decide to pass in a window as a const reference, for example. So now we run this, there you go. All right, there is all of the input you could dream of. We've got mouse position, mouse buttons, and keys. Okay, fantastic. So that's going to wrap up this episode of the Sparky series. If you guys enjoyed the episode, please don't forget to hit the like button. And I will see you guys tomorrow when we're going to cover maths. Okay, so that's going to be stuff like vectors and matrices. Awesome. All right, I'll see you guys then. Goodbye. Vroom.